Welcome back. So 1985. Yep, I kind of sort of have to do this series now, don't I? 1985, the Edmonton Oilers steamrolled to a Stanley Cup. It was arguably one of the best teams in the history of the game. They swept the LA Kings, then they swept aside the Winnipeg Jets. They would go on and beat the Philadelphia Flyers in 5 in the 1985 Stanley Cup Finals. Whereas Chicago, they had beaten Detroit in a 3-game sweep. We will discuss that at the end of this video. They had beaten Minnesota in 6. So Chicago had proved they know how to score as well. So this was a series between two teams that knew how to score a lot of goals. Didn't really know a whole lot about keeping the puck out of their net in this series, but that's what puts it into this playlist. So the Edmonton Oilers were 49, 20, and 11 overall. 401 goals during the regular season. Yeah, 400 goals. First, obviously. 298 goals against, which was 8th overall in the NHL. Chicago during the regular season didn't have this explosive offense they showed in the playoffs. 309 goals, which was 10th. 299 against, which was 9th. So they only allowed one more goal than Edmonton. They scored almost 100 less. Now, again, for Chicago to get here, they went through the Norris division to get to the Oilers. And in Game 1, the Oilers made it look like this might be over in a sweep. That's an 11 on that board. Yeah, that's legit. This is all one game. Anderson scores from Napier and Fogelin at 5:48. Huddy then scores from Krushelnyski at 10:09. So 2 goals in 10 minutes. That's about right. Yaremchuk then scored for the Chicago Blackhawks from Daryl Sutter and Mark Bergevin at 12:36. Paul Coffey would make it 3-1 from Curry and Gretzky at 18:25. 3-1 looks ugly, but the second period it gets way uglier. Curry from Gretzky and Coffey at 3:38. Power play goal. Napier scores from Anderson and Huddy at 5:18. Shorthanded goal. Curry scores from Gretzky and Coffey at 14:58. And then Huddy scores from Hunter and Coffey at 18:57. At 7 goals, it is 7-1 after 2. Third period. Lindstrom scores from Greg and Melnick at 1:17. Gretzky scores from Greg at 10:49. Hughes scores from Puzar and Krushelnyski at 11:25. And then Anderson makes it 11 from Greg and Messier at 12:43. Troy Murray scores from Yaremchuk at 18:22, because why not, to make it 11-2. And Bannerman saved 21 out of 28 before he gets replaced by Esposito, who saved 10 out of 14. Wouldn't have mattered who was in net. You could have put both of them in net at the same time. Fuhr, 26 saves on 28 shots for the Edmonton Oilers. So we go to Game 2. Chicago's got to get better, right? Well, they do, and they don't. So let's go ahead and get into this one. And this was a game that would set records, but we'll come back to those records later. So power play goal by Glenn Anderson from Messier and Coffey at 6:21. They have a lead. It doesn't last. Bob Murray scores from Lysiak and Yaremchuk 13 seconds later at 6:34. It's a 1-1 tie. Chicago came to play. But before the period's out, Curry scores from Gretzky at 12:26. The Hawks didn't do a great job of controlling Yari Curry in this series. Or Wayne Gretzky. Second period, Daryl Sutter ties it from Larmer and Bergevin at 5:49, but less than 2 minutes later, Melnick scores from Dave Hunter and McClelland at 7:19. So the Oilers with a 3-2 lead entering the third. It's reasonable. Third period, they pull away. It's Curry from Gretzky and Krushelnyski at 8:26. Coffey then scores from Gretzky and Messier at 15:45. Ben Wilson then scores from Troy Murray and Al Secord at 19:22. So that makes it close enough that they pull the goalie, and Edmonton says thanks. Curry scores from Anderson at 19:36 to round out the hat trick. And then Glenn Anderson scores his second of the game into the empty net at 19:43. So that's 3 goals in 21 seconds. We'll come back to it. Bannerman, 30 saves on 35 shots. Fuhr saves 28 out of 31. Edmonton's up 2-0. But Chicago's not out of this, and they proved that in Game 3. It's Jack O'Callahan scoring from Patterson and Secord at 5:01. Then a minute later in that same first period, Larmer scores from Sutter and Savard at 6:02. So it's 2-0 for Chicago after 1. Second period, Edmonton gets on the board. It's Yaroslav Puzar scoring from Krushelnyski and Melnyk at 11:14. But Sutter would score from Troy Murray, and Denny Savard at 14:20. So that makes it a 3-1 game entering the third period. Messier would score from Anderson and Napier at 3:07 to make it close, but Denny Savard scores from O'Callaghan at 7:07. And then it's an empty netter by Troy Murray from Bannerman and Lysiak at 18:44. The Blackhawks win 5-2. 5-2. Surprising result? Absolutely. Fuhr, 28 saves on 32 shots. Bannerman saves 33 out of 35. Murray Bannerman making up for some poor numbers in the first couple of games. Those poor numbers would show up again in Game 4, but there were poor numbers at each end of the rink when it came to the goaltending. Yesterday I talked about a goaltending battle. This was a goaltending battle for a whole other reason. So, Game 4, Chicago at home needs to tie up the series. Gretzky would score from Gregg and Melnyk at 2:52. Sutter would tie it, though, from O'Callaghan and Bannerman at 4:23. So Murray Bannerman on the board a couple of times. Shorthanded goal then by Eddie Olczyk from Troy Murray at 9:50 makes it 2-1 for Chicago. That doesn't last. Mark Messier scores unassisted at 11:02 to tie it up. Chicago gets another lead. Savard from Larmer and Bergevin at 17:05. That lead lasts that long. 15 seconds later, Puzar scores from Anderson at 17:20. Chicago gets back the lead. Fraser from Olczyk and Murray at 18:17. And just before the period's out, on a power play, Secord scores from Savard and Ben Wilson at 19:35. It's 5-3 after the first period. I'm wondering if any players started hitting the showers and getting ready to go home because the score was 5-3. And they're like, well, the game's over. What do you mean there's still 2 more periods? Second period, Lindstrom scores from Krushelnyski and Napier at 10:20. Power play goal then by Chicago to get that lead back. Larmer scores from Boyd at 12:57. So it's a couple of goal lead for Chicago after 2 periods. Third period, Larmer scores from Savard and Sutter at 4:52. And then about 30 seconds later, Bob Murray scores from Patterson and Secord at 5:24. The Oilers, though, do get on the board a couple more times late. Anderson from Gretzky at 16:41. And then Messier scores from Gretzky and Coffey at 17:45. So your final score is 8-6 instead of 8-4. Grant Fuhr, 16 saves on 24 shots. Andy Moog goes in and replaces him. Saves the 1 shot he faces. Bannerman saves 29 out of 35. And yeah, after they got that 8th goal, they only recorded 1 shot the rest of the way. They allowed a couple of goals. But you know what? Chicago's tied up the series. So we go to Game 5. Keep in mind, yesterday's board, Game 7 was here. This is Game 5, showing just how many goals are being scored in this series. So Game 5 in Edmonton. And yes, that's a double-digit number there. So there you go. Krushelnyski scores from Curry and Coffey at 1 minute and 11 seconds. Chicago ties it. It's Murray. That's Troy Murray from Doug Wilson and Denny Savard at 4:37. A power play goal then restores the lead for Edmonton. Curry from Coffey and Huddy at 7:52. The game is then tied on a power play. A lot of power play goals here. Sutter from Ben Wilson and Lysiak at 9:15. And then it's another power play marker. It's Larmer scoring this one from Savard and Secord at 14:13. About 2 minutes later, Edmonton scores. It's Curry from Lowe and Gretzky at 16:31. After the first period, it's 3-3. It's crazy. It's 3-3 after the first period. Second period, Chicago takes a lead. It's a power play marker for Savard. So that's 4 power play goals already for Chicago in this game. Larmer and Doug Wilson with the assists at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And that lasts for 20 seconds. 21 seconds after that goal, Messier scores from Anderson and Coffey to tie it up. Then Gretzky scores from Fuhr and Coffey at 8:15. We get a power play goal for Edmonton. Gretzky from Anderson at 16:46. And then as time's winding down, Jari Kurri goes, I'll take another one. He scores from Krushelnyski and Coffey at 18 minutes and 39 seconds. As Curry continues to have a historic series against the Chicago Blackhawks. Third period, Edmonton's not done. Coffey scores from Gretzky and Curry at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Dave Hunter scores unassisted at 11:57. You know that whole don't rack up the score, don't run up the score? Yeah, Edmonton never heard about that. Fogelin scores from McClellan and Hunter at 15:43. And before the game's out, it's another power play marker for Chicago, because why not? They score their 5th power play goal of the game. So really lousy penalty killing by the Oilers in this one. Sutter scores from Savard and Murray at Troy Murray at 18:37. But you know what? How often do you win a game by 5 when you allow 5 power play goals? I'm going to go out on a limb and say it never happened before, and it's never happened again. Bannerman, 41 saves on 51 shots. Yeah, you're in there. Murray, it's your net. Can I come out? No, really not. Fuhr, 18 saves on 23 shots. All 5 goals he allowed were on the power play, so his even strength save percentage was perfect. We now go to Game 6. Yep, needed 2 boards. Anybody that thought, hey, that 85 series between Chicago and Edmonton, that would need 2 boards, you would be correct. So let's go to board number 2. And we're in Chicago. And yeah, the Oilers, they put their foot down in the first period. Curry scores from Gretzky, continuing this amazing run he was on. At 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Messier then scored from Anderson and Coffey at 13:26. In the second period, Messier would score on the power play from Anderson and Lowe at 8:32. Curry scores from Gretzky and Hunter at 13:28. Fogelin then scores again. Lee Fogelin was a defensive defenseman. From Lindstrom and Hunter at 14:41. And then it's a shorthanded goal for Curry from Gretzky at 18:05. It's 6-0 after 2. Third period, Chicago gets on the board. First it's Secord from Ludzik and Patterson at 7:27. Yaremchuk then scores from Patterson at 13:34. And the Oilers decide, the Chicago crowd's going to be enjoying themselves no longer. Anderson from Napier and Lowe at 15:54. And then Curry scores from Gretzky at 18:17. Grant Fuhr, 25 saves on 27 shots. Poor Murray Bannerman, 19 saves on 27 shots. Just absolutely under fire, under siege in this series. So when you look at series scoring, Denny Savard, 3 goals and 7 assists. He had 10 points in 6 games. They lost. Sutter, 5 goals, 3 assists for Daryl Sutter. Troy Murray, 3 goals, 5 assists. Steve Larmer, 4 goals, 3 assists. Al Secord, 2 goals and 4 assists. On the goaltending front, Bannerman was 2-4 with an .820 save percentage. Esposito had a .714 save percentage in his appearance. On the Oilers side, records. It's Gretzky, 4 goals, 14 assists. That's the most assists ever in a series. Curry had 12 goals and 3 assists. That's the most goals ever in a series. He averaged 2 goals a game. Averaged 2 goals per game over 6 games. Anderson, 6 goals and 8 assists for 14 points. Coffey, 3 goals and 11 assists for 14 points. Again, this isn't 6 games. Messier, 6 goals and 3 assists. And in net, Moog was 0-0 with a perfect 1,000 save percentage. Fuhr was 4-2 with an .855 save percentage. Again, find a goaltender with an .855 save percentage that wins the series. I'll give you a Jonathan Quick that's shaking his fist and going, man, I tell you. 344 combined penalty minutes in this series. There was some ugliness in this. If you're going to have that many goals in a series, it's going to get ugly. The 69 goals between the two teams is an overall record. 44 goals for the Oilers. That's a record in a series. 23 goals for the Hawks in Series 1 of that year. In a sweep in 3 games over Detroit. That is a record from the same year. 62 goals for Chicago versus Minnesota in round 2 that year. So Chicago had crazy series in round 1, round 2, and round 3. So there was lots of scoring for them. And again, the 69 total goals being a record. The fastest 3 goals in a game being 21 seconds in game 2. Of course, that was Chicago scoring and then 2 empty netters for Edmonton. But still, 3 goals in 21 seconds and 69 goals scored between 6 games. So your average game had a little over 11 goals in it. That's as 80s as 80s gets. And Gretzky set a lot of scoring records, and this series saw one of them. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yeah, this one took a lot longer for me to get set up than I had hoped. I actually had all of the mini magnets, everything on the one board, and I thought maybe I can get it on the one board. And by game 2, I went, no, this isn't going to be one board. I'm going to need 2. But there you go. Edmonton, Chicago, 1985. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.